The year was 1777. Just 2 years earlier, the 13 American colonies had declared their independence from Britain, but the road to freedom was anything but guaranteed. The British Empire, with its vast resources and well-trained armies, had expected to crush the rebellion swiftly. Yet, here they were, locked in a bloody and uncertain conflict. While the cause for independence burned brightly among the colonists, they lacked both the unity and military strength to match Britain head-on. The fate of the revolution hung in the balance, and it was in the wilderness of upstate New York that the tide would begin to turn. This is the story of the Battle of Saratoga, a clash that would prove to be the tipping point in the American Revolutionary War. Let's start with the British plan. General John Burgoyne, an ambitious officer with a flair for the dramatic, had devised a bold strategy to cut the rebellious colonies in two. His plan was simple but audacious, a three-pronged invasion. Burgoyne would march his forces southward from Canada along the Hudson River, meeting up with British forces moving north from New York City, and a smaller detachment traveling east from western New York. Together, they would seize control of Albany, isolating New England, the heart of the rebellion, from the other colonies. At least on paper, it was a brilliant plan, but execution would prove to be another matter entirely. Burgoyne's Northern Army, around 7,000 strong, began its march in the summer of 1777. Its ranks included seasoned British regulars, German Hessian mercenaries, Loyalist fighters, and even a contingent of Native American allies. Burgoyne, confident and charismatic, earned himself the nickname Gentleman Johnny. He believed his campaign would crush the Americans' resolve and bring a swift end to the revolution. But the American forces had other plans. Commanded by General Horatio Gates, they were determined to stop Burgoyne's advance. Gates was not a particularly inspiring figure, but he had something Burgoyne sorely lacked: an ever-growing army of determined militia and regular Continental soldiers. Among his ranks were rugged frontiersmen, adept at guerrilla warfare, and battle-hardened officers, including the controversial and fiery General Benedict Arnold. As Burgoyne pressed south, his army began encountering unexpected resistance. The dense forests of New York turned into a nightmare. American troops, led by the likes of Colonel Daniel Morgan and his sharpshooters, harassed the British column at every turn. Supplies dwindled. Local Loyalist support, crucial to Burgoyne's plan, never materialized. And the British reinforcements Burgoyne expected? They simply didn't come. General William Howe in New York City had abandoned the plan and launched his own campaign to capture Philadelphia, leaving Burgoyne isolated. By September, Burgoyne's army reached the small village of Saratoga, hungry, exhausted, and low on morale. And waiting for them were nearly 15,000 American troops. The first major clash came on September 19, 1777, at Freeman's Farm. The British army advanced in formation, their redcoats cutting through the morning mist, but the Americans lay in wait. Morgan's riflemen, using deadly accuracy, picked off British officers and sowed chaos among the ranks. Benedict Arnold, despite clashing with Gates over tactics, pushed his troops aggressively into the fight. The battle raged for hours, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. By nightfall, Burgoyne still held the field, but it came at a staggering cost. He had lost over 500 men, with more wounded or missing. The British dug in, hoping for reinforcements and fresh supplies, but none came. For weeks, the Americans swarmed the area, cutting off Burgoyne's supply lines and tightening the noose. As days turned into weeks, the balance tipped further in the Americans' favor. Gates's army swelled as more militia streamed in, eager to defend their homeland from the invaders. Meanwhile, Burgoyne's men were starving, their spirits fading. The second and decisive battle took place on October 7th at Bemis Heights. By now, Burgoyne was desperate. Running out of options, he launched another attack, hoping to break through the American lines. His soldiers fought valiantly, but the Americans were ready. The battlefield erupted in chaos as musket volleys and cannon fire tore through the thick autumn air. Arnold, defying orders to remain in camp, charged onto the battlefield like a man possessed. He led troops in a ferocious counterattack, smashing the British flank and forcing them into retreat. Though wounded in the leg during the fighting, Arnold's heroics inspired the Americans to press on, sealing their victory. By October 17th, cornered and outnumbered, Burgoyne surrendered his entire force of nearly 6,000 troops to General Gates. The British campaign to divide the colonies had ended in failure, and it was the first time in the war that a major British army had surrendered to the Americans. The impact of the Battle of Saratoga was profound. Militarily, it was a catastrophe for the British and a triumph for the Americans, but its significance went far beyond the battlefield. News of the American victory traveled across the Atlantic and into the halls of Versailles, where French King Louis XVI and his advisors had been watching the revolution closely. While the French despised the British, they had been hesitant to commit military support to what seemed like a losing cause. Saratoga changed everything. The victory proved that the American forces could stand toe-to-toe with the British and win. In 1778, France formally joined the war as an American ally, bringing its powerful navy and seasoned troops into the fight. The alliance tipped the balance of power, forcing Britain to defend not just its American colonies, but its global empire. Soon, Spain and the Netherlands would also declare war on Britain, turning the American Revolution into a global conflict. Saratoga also galvanized the American spirit. For colonists who had doubted the revolution's chances, it was proof that independence wasn't just a dream, it was achievable. The surrender of Burgoyne's army became a moment of national pride, a reminder that determination, strategy, and unity could overcome even the mightiest of empires. The Battle of Saratoga was more than just a military engagement. It was a turning point in history, a moment when the course of a nation shifted. Without Saratoga, there would be no French alliance. And without that alliance, it's hard to imagine the American Revolution ending in victory. From the dense forests of New York to the glittering courts of France, the echo of that triumph would shape the destiny of a new republic. For General Burgoyne, it marked the end of his ambitions. But for a fledgling United States, it was the beginning of hope, a hope that would carry them all the way to independence.